Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to the Sims 4 speedrunning video, or welcome to the channel if you're new here. So in today's video I'm going to be building in the world of Brindleton Bay, which is the world that we got from the expansion pack The Sims 4 Cats and Dogs, and I'm going to be building a Hampton style Windmill Family Home. So this house ends up having 3 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms, and it's built on a 30 by 30 lot. Now I'm building on a little separate island in Brindleton Bay, which I've never built here before, and I'm not sure if everyone's aware, but there is like a little separate island that you can visit in this world. It's located at the bottom right hand side of the map. I think it's called, off memory, Dead Grass Isle. I'm only saying that because I know this house, or like the lot that I'm building on, it's called Dead Grass something. I can't remember what it is, but yeah, I'm building on this little separate island in the world of Brindleton Bay. But I am so excited to share this video because this house has a literal windmill, which I built without using any custom content. It's all things within the game. I'm so excited to share it. So I really hope you guys like it. But getting on and actually talking a little bit more about the house itself. So the whole idea and the whole concept of building a house that's got a windmill, I'm not gonna lie to you, the idea that to actually do this whole entire thing, I have been holding on to for a few months now. But the thing is, it was such a daunting task to me. That's why I'm so happy and so excited that I've finally done it and I can finally share it and you can finally hopefully enjoy it if you want to download this build. But yeah, the actual idea to build a windmill Hampton style family home has been something that I've been meaning to do for a little while, but it was just something that I was a little bit scared to build, if I'm being completely honest with you. Now, the idea originally started, like at the start of the year, I was out on a walk, and when I was on this walk, I ran into an old windmill, which I didn't actually know the windmill where I was in this location. I didn't actually know there was a windmill in the area that I was doing a walk around, but I ran into this windmill, and I found myself instantly looking at it and thinking, alright, well, if I was trying to build this in The Sims 4, how would I do it and how many tiles would it be, and this little bump out over there, how many tiles wide would I make that? I started trying to like analyse this windmill that I saw on this walk, which I want to mention, it was absolutely nothing like the one on the screen. The one that I ran into was very much just an old English windmill. It looks like it was about to fall down, but it's got charm to it. Either way, I thought about building the windmill back then, but yeah, the task to actually build a windmill was just so daunting to me because I didn't have a Scooby, where to even begin with this kind of thing, and so I kind of put it on a bit of a back burner. But that was up until fairly recently, because I saw this article somewhere. I can't even remember where I saw this article, but it was something like the 10 most photographed houses in America. I think it was called something like that, and I ran into this article, thought, tell you what, I'm gonna give that a read. I started scrolling through it, and there's a Hampton style windmill house in this article also, which I then since discovered, you know Robert Downey Jr., it's his house, he built it, he lives there with his wife and kids I think. But yeah, there's his Hampton's house in the US somewhere, which is an old windmill, and they've converted it into a house, and Robert Downey Jr. now lives there. I'm not a massive Robert Downey Jr. fan. I mean, he's alright, but I'm not building this because I'm like the biggest fan or something. I just admired this Hampton style windmill house. I just thought it was the most beautiful thing, and yeah, I just basically wanted to try and build something like it in the game. But it's just taken me a little bit of courage, if I'm being completely honest, to actually try and figure out, okay, well, if I was to build this, how is it going to look? How am I going to be able to do the roof line? How am I going to do the different bump outs? And how am I still going to be able to make it on the inside so it's going to be able to be easy for like gameplay? It's got a nice floor plan. Like, it was going to be a little bit of a tricky one, but I mean, you can see that I figured it out. The main body of the house, like without the windmill, I feel like is a very, I don't want to say generic because I still absolutely love it. Like, I just think it's so pretty. But you know, like the world of Brindleton Bay, I have this one kind of style that I always like to build in, and it's this kind of gabled roof kind of style. I just think it's so pretty. And when you actually go into a brand new save file, if you've got the Cats and Dogs expansion pack, a lot of the houses in the world are kind of like built in this style. And yeah, the main structure of the house, it's pretty like easy, like the actual building part of it. The part that just makes it feel just so special really is just the windmill. But you can see that I have done the whole exterior. I figured that out, okay, what rooms are going to be where, and you know, like what different like bump outs and stuff. I used curved walls as well in this build, which I'm not one to often use curved walls in The Sims 4, because the curved walls in this game, they can be a little bit funny sometimes, and so whenever you're trying to do floor plans and you've got curved walls involved, it can be a bit of a nightmare. But there is curved walls at the front portion of the build. I end up placing down the Greenhouse Haven kit windows in that little like front curve section, which I've realised I've been using a lot recently. In all fairness, they are really good windows, but if you didn't catch it, we got a Greenhouse Haven kit like a month or so ago now. I don't even know how long it's been, but we got a build and buy kit which basically focuses on greenhouses and loads of different like greenhouse clutter, loads of different random bits and bobs. But we also got some really good windows within the kit, and I feel like ever since we've got that kit, I've just been trying to build stuff that uses these windows. I mean, like last week I built a thrift tea and boba shop, if you didn't catch it, but I built that. And I also use them windows in that build as well. I just feel like they're very versatile, but yeah, I use them windows on the front of the build in kind of like the curve section. It brings in so much natural light, and on the actual inside of that room, it ends up being a part lounge space, but then also a bit of a mini library. The only reason I'm saying a bit of a mini library is because I use some modular bookcases, and I did them so they're floor to ceiling and they take up the whole entire wall. Massive wall of bookcases basically. But then I found this little ladder, and then I attached the ladder to the bookcases, so then it looks like if your Sims want to get a book, they have to actually climb up the ladder, because the bookcase is so big and so tall that your Sims wouldn't be able to reach it. There also does end up being like a little home office study, almost like book nook space as well, on top of the like miniature library in this house. But that ends up being on the 3rd floor in the actual windmill itself, because when it came around to building this, I didn't just want to make the windmill look really cool from the outside and then just have it be empty on the inside. And so when it came around to doing the floor plan, I decided to make the floor plan on the 3rd level in the windmill into, yeah, kind of like a home office writing book nook space. It is so cute and cozy in the room, and there is so many different windows going all around all the different walls, and it's really cozy in there. But I'll speak about that more when I actually move on and start doing it, because I do want to speak about what is currently on the screen. So currently you can see that I've started coming in and basically making the windmill that is going to then be plopped on to the house. At this moment in time on the screen, you might notice that there is no house, like the house has completely disappeared. Don't worry, basically what happened was, when it came in to start doing this windmill, I was thinking, alright, well, do I build the windmill first, and then once I'm happy with that, then build the house? Or should I build the house first and then get the dimensions for that and then build the windmill? I opted for the second one, so I came in, I built the exterior of the house, did the floor plan, got that to a stage where I was happy with, and I knew that I wouldn't be changing any like dimensions or any bump outs here and there. And then once I was completely content with that, I basically saved the house to my library. Honestly, about 20 times. I was so worried that if I was to bulldoze it, I'd lose it. I saved the house to my library so many different times, so I had backups of backups, and then even them backups had backups of a lot. I then bulldozed a lot, and then I started coming in and building the windmill, which you can see that I'm doing right now. So the actual windmill itself only consists, would you believe it, of 3 different items from some packs, but I just used a load of the same items. So if you have the Outdoor Retreat game pack and you have the Snowy Escape expansion pack, that is all you need to create the windmill blades. I do also use a table from the Cats and Dogs expansion pack as kind of like the middle circular post, which I imagine the blades kind of like go around, but you'll see that in a second. To actually make the blades itself on the windmill, yeah, you actually only need 3 items, but it's just 3 of these items just repeated. So I use this sign, which is from the Outdoor Retreat game pack, and it's the one which it's kind of like more towards the centre and like the middle portion of the blades, and it's this sign that's got these little tiny like almost like bolts coming out of the wooden detail. Really pretty. I use that from Outdoor Retreat. I then use these posts, which are meant to be lamp posts, but again from Outdoor Retreat, and I basically just rotated them and then angled them in certain ways and just got them so it could make some sort of like a blade shape. And then the last thing I used is a wall decoration, which is from the Snowy Escape expansion pack, and I basically sized it up, rotated it so you could just see the back of it, and then I used that as kind of like the filling, if you want to put it that way, for like the colour of the windmill. The way that I actually built the blades, because by the way, you only need to build one. If you're building a windmill, if you want to do something like this in your own game, it's really handy because you only need to build one and then you can just duplicate it, because you can see that is literally what I did. But the way that I started it off is I got that sign from Outdoor Retreat, you know, that the one that has kind of like that bolt detail, and I basically scaled that up ever so slightly, and then I rotated it so then it was laying flat on the floor. And then once that was laying flat, I then got them posts, which were from Outdoor Retreat. They're the ones that I've used as pretty much the whole structure of the windmill, because I use them on both the exterior, if you want to call them like the walls of the fan, if that makes any sense, but then I also used them on the inside of the fan as well as just kind of like a little bit of detail. But I went in and I laid them flat down on the floor, and then I rotated some in one way, and then I rotated them the same angle but in the different directions. They were kind of like fanning out from one another. I then basically repeated that kind of like symmetry throughout the rest of the windmill and basically got it to a size that I was happy with. And then once I had placed down all of them different individual lampposts, that's when I came in and started using this wall decoration, which is from Snowy Escape. And yeah, I basically just sized it up and then flipped it so then you could only see the back of it, because the back of it's this like really nice wooden detail. And then yeah, just repeated it. And then once I was happy with the first fan, I then duplicated the room, so then it was like a two-sided fan, and then I just duplicated the room again, so then it became a four-sided fan. And then the windmill itself has 4 blades. When I did duplicate it, I noticed there was like 1 or 2 different signs that were kind of like poking out a little tiny bit through like one of the back ends. You would have seen I just quickly just adjusted them. But yeah, basically once I got the fan to have the 4 different like propellers, is that what it's called? I don't know, I'm gonna call it that. But once I got the fan to a point that I was completely happy with, I didn't want to change anything about it, you then would have seen I decided to make a copy of the room. So what I basically did is I made the fan, got it to a stage that I was happy with, I plopped it down on one corner of the lot, I then duplicated the room, so then I had a second fan. But the reason I did this is because I wanted the windmill to be double-sided. So what I did is once I copied this second room, I basically went around, highlighted the second fan, so like the copy, if you want to call it that, and then I basically flipped it so then it was like 180 degrees upside down, and then I moved it onto the other fan. Basically this way, no matter what angle you're looking at this house from, the windmill looks realistic, like it looks dimensional. I didn't just want it to look really good from the front and then look a little bit iffy from like the back or something. So I basically just duplicated the fan but then flipped it, so then it looks like a windmill from no matter what side you're looking at this house from. The last thing I then did to the windmill was I propped it up, so then the fan was kind of like standing upright. I rotated it, I think 45 degrees, to make it look like the propellers had like stopped in some sort of motion. I then rotated it one last time, but I rotated it in an angle, so instead of rotating it so it looks like it's been turning, I rotated it so it looked like the windmill itself was like a little bit tilted. I didn't want it just to be completely upright, standing completely parallel with the ground. I wanted it to look like it was a little bit more tilted and a little bit more attached to the roof. So yeah, last time I rotated it, I just tilted it, I think like 10 degrees or something, and then that way you can plonk it onto the roof and it looks like it's coming out of the roof at some sort of angle like it would in real life. Then basically, once I had completed the windmill, fan, propellers, whatever you want to class them as, I'm calling them a fan right now because as I'm speaking to you, right next to my microphone there is a fan, because right now England's going through a heat wave, so I keep on looking at the fan and then calling the windmill a fan, but it's kind of like a fan, isn't it? A windmill is just basically a huge fan that is just, it was used in the olden days to make stuff. But I basically, once I had completed the whole entire windmill, I then saved it as a room to my library, and then I placed back down the house, which I had about 1,010,000 backups of, but I placed down the house that I originally built. I then placed down the room which had the windmill in it, and then using the tool mod, I then highlighted the fan and then was able to move objects it onto the house and onto the 3rd floor where the windmill was. I really hope that was easy enough to follow along with. It's quite tricky sometimes trying to explain what you're doing in such detail when you're watching footage that has been sped up by so much. Like real time it's not so bad, but when you're trying to explain something in kind of like a tutorial kind of way, when the footage is sped up by so much, it's so hard to pinpoint everything that you're doing exactly when it's on the screen. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to ask me. and I will try and explain it better, hopefully, in the comments if I haven't already explained it well enough. But yeah, that is pretty much how you make a windmill in The Sims 4. Now, I do want to give a very honourable mention to the creator under the name Sims here on YouTube, because before I came in and I started building this windmill, I basically taught myself how to make the windmill from a tutorial that they had previously posted. I will be linking the tutorial that I watched in the description box down below, but basically Sims has this video, it's around about 15 minutes long, and they show you how to make so many different versions of so many different styles of windmills. I only used one. I mean, you probably have a house that has multiple different windmills, but they show you the process of making the windmill that I just showed you, but then they also have different variants of it as well, depending on what kind of build style that you want to go for. If you want to go for like a little bit more of like an older, more rustic kind of style, if you want to go for like a little bit more of like a Tudor style, even kind of like an Asian kind of style, they have a tutorial which I watched before I came in and I started filming this video, and it basically taught me how to make a windmill. And I did just want to mention it just in case you just want to go and check it out for yourself. I highly recommend it, because if I'm being completely honest, I don't think this build would have been half as good if I didn't watch this tutorial beforehand and they didn't teach me basically how to make a windmill. But yeah, I did just want to mention that. I'll be linking their channel and their video in the description box down below, and yeah, I highly recommend that you go and you watch the video. It's very in-depth, it's very detailed, and it's very easy as well. Like, the way that they explain things is just so easy to understand. But anyway, finally moving on from that and getting back and talking about what I'm doing right now and what is currently on the screen. So you can see that I finished up the windmill placement, kind of got all of that sorted, got it to a place where I was happy with. I then did also add in kind of like a little, I'm not sure what they're called, but you know them little bump outs that you can put into a roof sometime to make it look like there's more rooms and there's more roof details than what there actually is. Do you know the ones that I'm talking about? Can't think what they're called, but I placed one of them down basically at the back of the windmill, because when I placed the windmill onto the roof itself, the pole that I use as kind of like the center point for the windmill was kind of poking through the back end of it, and so I found this little kind of like roof decoration and I plopped it on the back side of the windmill. And I was thinking maybe when this windmill used to be in use, because I imagine it used to be like an active windmill like in the world of Brindleton Bay, but since then someone has bought it and they've renovated it and they've made it into their family home. But when it was like an active working windmill, maybe that little bump out that I placed down on kind of like the back of the windmill was where like the clocks and stuff would be, because windmills used to move. Well, I mean, they still might move, but windmills obviously when they move, I'm assuming there must be some like clocks and some sort of like mechanical stuff going on. I ain't got a clue. I've never been inside of a windmill, but I imagine that is where all of like the clocks for the windmill would be. It was just something that I placed down to kind of like cover up that back post, but yeah, I ended up thinking about that idea when I placed it down. You can see that I've also come in and done the majority of the landscaping for this build, as well as the terrain painting. I also placed down loads of different like individual like bird houses and bird baths. I was thinking, where I built this house on quite literally a separate island, like there is no neighbours. If your Sims live here, they literally live on their own. Like, they're out in the sticks. Well, I say they're out in the water, because there is literally nothing around it. The little island that I'm building on in Brindleton Bay, it's meant to have a museum here. So when you go into a brand new save file, this lot that I'm building on, it's originally a museum, but I just thought it would be the perfect place to have a little family home that has a windmill, because there's something really wholesome and cozy about that to me. But I placed down loads of different like nature looking decorations. So I imagine the Sims that are going to live here in my save file, because I mentioned this very late, but by the way, I'm building this house for my save file. I normally mention this quite like close to the start of the video, but there was just so much to talk about, and there's so much that we needed to catch up on in terms of like the actual building process of this house, that it's just taken its time. But yeah, I am building this house in my save file. This house is going to be in my save. I would feel so wrong if I was to build this house and not include it, just because I love it so much. And like I said, this is probably the most exciting thing I have ever potentially built in the game. But I imagine that the Sims that live here in my save, they really love like birds and nature. I imagine that I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but there's these different like cameras that you can get. I'm speaking from a perspective of having parents that absolutely love birds, by the way. Like my mum and dad, they love birds, like bless them, so sweet. But you know, you can get them cameras that you can put into birds' house and you can kind of like watch birds. I imagine if that was a thing in The Sims, this family would have them. They just love nature. They love looking at the wildlife out their windows. And so in terms of like the exterior decorations and just kind of little bits and bobs here and there, I placed down multiple different bird houses, a few different bird baths, just things that I imagine that they would have placed down onto the lot to kind of benefit the nature, if that makes any sense. But as well, in the back garden there ends up being a few different planters. There also ends up being like a tiny little table and chairs, and then honestly not much else. There is a swing set at kind of like the front portion of the build on the left hand side of where the front door is, but in terms of actual exterior decorations, I just didn't want to clutter it up too much. I mean, it goes without saying, but if you want to download this house off the gallery and you want to maybe add, I don't know, some monkey bars, or you want to add some sun loungers or whatever, feel free to do so. I did at one point place down some sun loungers onto like the front garden area by the planters, but then I just didn't like the look of them, and so I ended up deleting them. You wouldn't have seen that though, because I did decide to cut that portion out. But you can see that I've now moved over and I've started coming in and furnishing the inside of this house. So I started off by the little front entrance hallway, kind of sorted out the hallway, got it to a place that I was happy with, and now I've moved over and I've started furnishing one of the 3 bathrooms. Now normally when it comes around to do my speed builds, I feel like you'll know this if you've watched me quite regularly, but normally I only ever show the furnishing for one bathroom because bathrooms are very repetitive. I find them not to be the most exciting thing to watch. When you're watching a speed build, you're not watching someone place down a toilet and be like, yeah, that's a great idea. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, when it comes around to furnishing bathrooms, they're not exactly the most interesting rooms to watch being furnished. So whenever it comes around to me doing my speed builds, I only ever show the furnishing of one bathroom in the house that I'm doing. But for this house, I wanted to show the first bathroom because it's kind of in the windmill section, and it was such an awkward shape, and just the layout of like that room itself is very awkward, and it was just very difficult, and I wanted to keep it in to show you how I furnished it, just in case you have like a diagonal bathroom or something and you want to get ideas for, I don't know, I just thought it'd be interesting if I kept in how I furnished this really ickledy-pickledy shaped bathroom. But yeah, it was just kind of like a little entrance bathroom, maybe like a guest bathroom. Maybe your Sims, their mates have come over from Brindleton Bay and they've come over on like a little boat or something. They've come round to, I don't know, have tea or something, and they wanted to use the loo. There is a bathroom right by the front door. Or if your Sims are just about to pop out the house, they're about to like go around the world of Brindleton Bay, they can just go into that bathroom, use the loo, and then the front door is pretty much exactly there. But then on the other side of the bathroom is where we have kind of like the little laundry room, utility room space, which is the room that I'm currently going around and furnishing. So in here I placed down a washing machine and a tumble dryer on this wall, which you can see that I'm just coming in and just cluttering out kind of like the tops of them. I placed down what I imagine to be like extra laundry and just like extra random bits and bobs. On the other side, I tried to make it look like there was almost like a pop-out ironing board. So you can see the way that I did it. I placed down a side table, which I think the one that I've used is from the Laundry Day Stuff pack, and then I got this quite skinny like side table. It's quite high, but it happens to be the same kind of height as the little side table that I've used, and I basically merged that into the other side table. I then got the ironing board, which is normally just meant to be a wall decoration in the game, and I basically rotated it and then plopped it down onto the side table, and it kind of looks like an ironing board. I have done this before in the past, and I've been so happy with it before in the past, because it just gives utility rooms and laundry room spaces, which normally in the game aren't the most fun thing to furnish, because there's only a handful amount of items that you can really place down into like a utility room. What else can you place other than a washing machine, a tumble dryer, and then like the hoover or the vacuum, whatever you want to call it as. But when it comes around to doing utility rooms, yeah, I've done this thing before where I've basically tried to make it look like there is a pull down little ironing board. I then found this kind of, it looks like an iron, it definitely doesn't, but it kind of looks like the shape of an iron. It's this kind of like little tin can, I think it's called a pitcher. We got it from the Laundry Day Stuff pack, but it's in the debug menu. And you know when you get your Sims to wash their clothes by their hand in a little wash tub outside? Well, they'll basically use that to like replace the water in the tub. I basically thought it kind of looked like an iron, so I placed it down onto the side table, and then on the other side table, the one that was from the Laundry Day Stuff pack, I then got this little like washing ironing basket thing, and then I plopped it down, and I was thinking maybe they're all the freshly ironed clothes and they've just been plopped down into the ironing basket, and I just thought it was a really cute idea. But yeah, that was a little like front section of the windmill itself. Now you can see I've moved over and I've started furnishing the quite big hallway in the actual house. So when you walk in through the front door, you kind of have them two initial doors. One goes into the bathroom, one goes into the utility room space. Then there is a little bit of like open hallway space in the actual initial entrance. I placed down a get-together wardrobe in that space, also placed down like an armchair, fluffy rug, plant in the corner. But then you go down some steps and then you get into like this middle section, which it is just really a really big hallway, but I just tried to make it seem a little bit more interesting than just like a bog standard hallway with like a plant pot in it. So this little midsection is kind of where I start incorporating a few different platforms into the build, because the thing is, when I was building it on the exterior, I don't know if you would have remembered, but there was kind of like this little platform step thing on kind of like the front right hand side of the build. I don't know if you remember, but I used this kind of like awning thing that we got from the Get Together expansion pack. It had some sort of like ivy growing up it, and I placed it in front of a door. The door that I placed it onto was only on the second platform height, but when it actually came round to doing the front portion of the build, where the front door is, I put the front door section on like, I think 3 platforms high, so there was kind of like a little bit of dimension already. So when it came round to me doing the floor plan, I thought, well, why don't I split it up, because then it kind of just makes this hallway seem a little bit more interesting rather than just being like a standard one level hallway. And so yeah, I start incorporating a few different split levels and a few different levels of stairs in this section. I placed down a few different like side tables. I rotated a mirror on top of one of the side tables. The mirror that I rotated, it's from the Growing Together expansion pack, and I just rotated it using the tool mod, and then I plopped down 2 little like wall pendants either side of it. There is also a few different like photos on the wall. I placed down this shelving unit that we got from the book Nook Kit, and it's meant to be, you know them like little hidden shelves that you can get that look like books? It's meant to be one of them. Place that down. Also placed down like a massive rug in the middle. The rug that I've used is from the book Nook Kit. I am pretty certain ever since we got that book Nook Kit, I've used that new fluffy rug in pretty much every single one of my builds. It's just one of my new favourite rugs to use. It's just so versatile. You can use it in so many different styles, and it's plain, and it comes in some really nice plain neutral swatches, but I use that to kind of like fill out the empty wooden floor space in that room. But you can see that I've now moved over and I've started working on the half kind of library then half kind of living room section of this build. So this is where I was talking about when I was at the start of the video about there was kind of like a miniature library on the inside of the house. This is the miniature library. I'm calling it a miniature library because how often can you walk into someone's house and they will have floor to ceiling bookcases going wall to wall that are so high that you need a ladder? I'm classing this as like a miniature library. It's not a full-blown library, but I mean, there's a few bookcases for your Sims to choose from, but in here I used the new modular bookcases that we got from that book Nook Kit, and I basically used a ton of them and put them on top of one another. I then found this ladder, which the ladder that I've used is from the Cats and Dogs expansion pack, but it's in the live edit menu. I basically found it, pulled it up, and then currently it looks like it's kind of like sitting flush with the bookcases, like there's no angle to it. I tried to rotate it originally and it went a bit funny, like it just wasn't happening. And I remember that I have rotated this one particular ladder before in the past, and so I thought, instead of trying to play about with it now, I'm gonna place the ladder so it's kind of sitting flush with the bookcase. I'm gonna come in, clutter up these bookcases. You can see that I've just placed down loads of different individual sculptures and loads of different like plants and books, and just even like little random storage boxes, and just basically loads of stuff. And once I got that to the point where I was happy with the clutter and I didn't want to change anything about it, I then revisited the ladder, and then you can see over here I then rotated it again, and I noticed if you want to do this in your own personal gameplay and you want to use this ladder as kind of like a bookcase ladder, the first time you rotate it, it doesn't seem to move, but it's not until you click off the object that it seems to move. I mean, you would have maybe catched what I was doing, but when I finished cluttering up them bookcases and I went back to the ladder, I rotated it again and it went in a complete different direction to what I wanted it to do. So then I did it again, and then eventually I got it to a point where I was happy with the rotation, and then I just plonked it onto the bookcase, and then yeah, it looks like there's like a miniature library wall. It just looks so cool. I'm so happy with this section of the build. But the rest of the room ends up being, yeah, like a lounge space, a little bit of like a music room, a little bit of like a family room which you can do a lot of different things in, basically. So I started off by placing down some sofas. At first I was trying to debate which sofa to go for, because I really wanted to use this new sofa that we got from book Nook Kit. It's the one that's kind of got like the blankets and the pillows on it. But the thing is about these sofas that we're getting recently, Don't get me wrong, I love the fact that they've got these little pillow details and the blanket details. It just makes it so more wholesome and cozy, and just, I prefer using these kind of things when it comes around to furnishing builds because it makes it look a little bit more realistic. But the thing is, and I'm going to kind of say the opposite to what I just said, it also makes it really difficult when you're coming around and you're trying to furnish a room that uses multiple of the same sofa. So I really wish in future DLCs, whether it be kits or expansion packs, whatever it will be, if we were going to get sofas that have all of these different soft furnishings, like pillows, like blankets, like all these different little like soft comfort things, if we could, one, get the sofa so it's got them connected to it, but then two, get a plain version of the sofa as well, and then maybe even push the boat out and then give us a separate version of the pillows and the blanket. I feel like that second one is a bit of a stretch, but how amazing would that be if we actually just got individual pillows and blankets to place down onto sofas and just different like armchairs and stuff, because then you could really just customize everything and just try and make it as customizable as you want it to be. But in the end, I ended up settling in for one of the sofas that we got from the Nook Kit. It's the one that's got the two pillows and the blanket, and then also a Chesterfield looking sofa which we got from the Cottage Living expansion pack. But then over here on the second portion of the build, in kind of like the curved section that I was talking about with them windows from the Greenhouse Haven kit, I placed down a grand piano, a nice little fluffy rug, also placed down like an armchair on the other wall, placed down like a little sailboat wheel decoration. I tried to decorate this house to be a bit coastal, by the way, in terms of like the interior decorations and furnishings. I tried to make it feel a little bit coastal. Whether I got that idea across or not, I don't know, but that was my intention when I came in and I started doing the interior, is yeah, to make it a little bit coastal, a little bit seaside like. But I placed down this little like boat wheel decoration onto the wall, and then I also placed down some individual feathers back by the wall that had the three-seater sofa from the Nook Kit. I placed down some individual feathers onto the wall as kind of like wall decorations. Going back to the Sims that are going to be living in this house in my save file, I imagine that the parents of this household, they just love nature. They love going out the window and just looking at all the different birds, and maybe at night time they get the little binoculars and they try and look out for all the different wildlife that is on the island itself. I don't know if you would have caught it, but when I was cluttering up like the coffee table in the lounge room, I placed down these binoculars. They are from the Growing Together debug menu. Not actually sure where your sim will use them, because through gameplay I have not discovered them myself, but they are in the debug menu. And I was thinking back to all the different decorations in this house and how I can kind of make it tie in to the Sims that live here. And so I thought, well, if you are someone that likes birds, maybe you're going to have some binoculars to look at the birds out. Like I said, I'm coming from like, my parents absolutely love birds. Like they've always loved birds, and I actually know too much about birds than what a normal 25-year-old probably should. But my dad has some little binoculars, and sometimes he likes to sit out the window and yeah, just watch the birds, and it's just so sweet. I placed down some little binoculars onto the little coffee table. But yeah, as you can see, I've now moved over and I started furnishing the next section, which is the kitchen area. But then it also kind of goes into the dining room space, but then it's still open to the hallway space. I'm just really happy with the overall floor plan of this house. So in here I decided to use the kitchen counters, which are from the Cottage Living expansion pack. They're these white ones that kind of have like a whitewashed wooden top detail to them. And then I use this oven, which is from the Growing Together EP, and then the fridge, which is from the Cottage Living expansion pack. One thing that I placed down to this kitchen, which was just so absolutely perfect, you couldn't even write it. You see by the microwave, I've got these two little tin cans next to it. One of them has got a windmill on top of it, which when it came round to decorating this kitchen, I completely forgot that that was even a swatch on these little like tin counter items. We basically got them from the Country Kitchen kit, and I use them in the majority of my kitchens anyway, because when I place them down, I'm always thinking, or maybe one's tea and maybe one's coffee, or maybe one's tea and sugar, or, you know them like different variations of all the different pots and stuff that you have in the kitchen. I always place them down into my Sims kitchens, and it wasn't until I placed it down and I was kind of like flickering through all the different swatches of them to see what would match well with this kitchen that I discovered that there is a little windmill swatch, which I'm pretty sure I've used before in the past, but up until furnishing the kitchen, completely forgot that that wasn't even a thing. And so yeah, I placed it down to this kitchen because it was just absolutely perfect. There also ends up being like a little microwave area, a little like spice rack thing, and just like a little bread bin and stuff. There is also kind of like a little kitchen island in the middle. I moved objects and chairs to make it look like Sims have been maybe sitting there eating their breakfast or something. It's also like a little casserole dish placed down onto this kitchen like island portion, and then I moved objects, a little note and then a little pen, and then also like a little ingredient. I was thinking that maybe one of the parents of this household made something to eat. Maybe they made their kids some dinner and they're now popping out or something, and so maybe they've like written out reheating instructions or something on this little like bit of paper, and then maybe the casserole has some like spices next to it to like zhuzh it up or something, and so there's kind of like this little herb placed down next to it. I just thought it was a really nice sweet little detail. But then on the other side of the kitchen we have the back door, which goes back to the exterior of the build, but we have like a little china cabinet. We also have like some dog leads and then like a shoe rack and stuff. And then over here I'm just going in and just decorating the small and sweet little dining room. So I use the cats and dogs, both table and chairs, and then also a rug in kind of like the centre. And then I went around, placed down some curtains onto the windows, and there also was kind of like a little bit of empty space that originally I was just going to put like a little ottoman or something on, but then I thought, well, why don't I place down like a chess table, because for the Sims that I imagine to live in this house, I imagine them to be very smart Sims, and so I thought I probably need to have a chess table somewhere in the house, and so I placed it down into that room. But now, as you can see, I've now moved over and I've started furnishing the first bedroom, which is the parents' room. So in terms of the storyline for the Sims that are going to be living in this house for my save file, I have got quite a in-depth-ish storyline for more so the parents rather than the children of this household, because if you're curious, I decorated the rooms to be this one for a set of parents, and then there is 2 other bedrooms upstairs. Both are decorated to be for children, but then one could potentially be a teenager. There's just like a few different like toys and like kid decorations in there, but the household consists of 4 Sims, and I was personally thinking that these Sims, massive nature people, as I've already told you, like they love bird watching, they probably love going on like really big hikes, they go to the beach with like their dogs and stuff, just absolute massive animal lovers, nature lovers. Like that is their kind of thing, that is their cup of tea. Now this is where I kind of like started the build off, but then as I kind of like progressed through the interior furnishing in terms of like doing the lounge room, doing like the home office section, even doing like the individual bedrooms, the idea for the Sims that are going to live here kind of like progressed, and I'm really happy with their little short and sweet storyline. It's not too in detail, but it's still quite detailed. So basically I was thinking, okay, well, how have these Sims managed to buy a house that is literally on its own complete island? There is no neighbours, they're completely by themselves. It's probably going to cost a lot of money, first of all, to actually be able to buy your house on your own little separate island. How have these Sims managed to do it? And what is their day job? And I was thinking of all the different ideas, and then it wasn't until I started doing that kind of like little walk-in library situation in the lounge room that I came to the idea of, what about if one of the parents of this household maybe potentially used to be a really good author and still gets books royalties to this day? Now, if you've never played with the writing book system in The Sims 4, honestly, your Sims can make a pretty penny. Like basically your Sims will get money every single day, and it will be a different amount every single day, but basically when they sell their book to a publisher, or if they self-publish it, they'll get daily royalties. I was thinking that maybe one of the parents of this household, or maybe even potentially both, but more in particular one of the household members, one of the parents, I was thinking used to be a really good author and maybe had quite an extensive book series that they was able to write. I was thinking it could be like a bit of a fantasy series or something, and basically over time and over the years they basically accumulated so much money that they was able to buy this house. Now I was thinking that when they were maybe in like their 20s, their 30s, maybe even like early 40s, they were so focused on their career that they didn't really have any time to settle down and start a family until they met their partner, who just so happens to have the same similar interests, loves the outdoors, loves nature, loves like dogs and cats and birds and all the different animals. But I imagine that they finally found someone that was kind of like their cup of tea, had all the same similar interests and stuff, and so quite later on in life they decided to settle down and start a family, and that is basically where they were at. Now at one point, and it was more so when I was focusing on furnishing the little home office in like the 3rd floor part of the Windmill, I was thinking about part of the storyline that could be not a little bit, well, I don't know how to explain it, but basically, I was thinking about the storyline of, well, what about if both of the parents just so happen to be authors, but then there's one that's got this fantasy book series, done really well for themselves, got like proper hardcore fans, but then I was thinking, or maybe there could be the other parent that is also an author, maybe not in the same genre, but they are a writer of some sort, but maybe they haven't done as well for themselves, and maybe there's kind of like a little bit of envy there, but then I don't know about that, because I just really want this whole storyline to be wholesome, and I feel like that's not as wholesome. But that was something that I was debating when I was doing the 3rd floor little home office. But yeah, that was just kind of like the idea that I had. This couple who just love writing books, and they love reading, they just love just being in their own mind and just putting it to paper, and they just love nature, and they just live on this little solo house out in the water on this little private island, probably got so much money in the bank, but they probably don't spend it, because 9 times out of 10 you can just find them sitting in either like their kitchen or their lounge room, just with a book and with a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, or maybe like upstairs in the home office. I just thought that was so wholesome. I also imagined if it was a thing that their children would probably be homeschooled, which unfortunately is not a thing in The Sims 4 unless you play with like mods or like some sort of thing that kind of like changes the schooling system. You can't get your kids to be I mean, you could always just not send them to school, but then that's kind of bad. But yeah, I imagine that if we did have the homeschooling ability in The Sims 4, that the kids of this household, they would definitely be homeschooled. Also as well, I feel like it will be such a mission trying to get to school as well, so I really hope for their sake that we one day be able to get homeschooling, because imagine these poor kids, they've got to literally get on a boat every single day to be able to get to the Brindleton Bay mainland and then go to school from there. Whereas if we just had homeschooling where your Sims could go to school from the computer, it would just be, I just think it's so much better for them. But yeah, unfortunately it's not a thing, it's not an option in the game, but if it was an option I would definitely allow these kids to be homeschooled. But anyway, moving on from that and actually finally getting back and talking about what I'm doing right now. So you can see that I finished up the parents' room downstairs. I then moved up to the upstairs and I furnished one of the other bathrooms. The bathroom that I furnished, I don't know if you saw the size of it, it was absolutely massive. I had such a mission trying to figure out how I was going to fit it out. I mean, it got there in the end, but initially when I came in and I started furnishing the bathroom, I pulled out a bathtub, then realised how massive I had made the room in the floor plan. But in terms of like the exterior walls, I normally like my interior floor plans to kind of like follow along them exterior walls quite nicely, because to me it makes sense and it's like more realistic. Because you know, sometimes you'll have structural walls in like a house or a flat that you live in which you can't bulldoze because they're kind of like main structure points for the house. I basically, whenever I come around to do my floor plans, I try and follow exterior walls because it just looks a little bit more realistic and it kind of makes more sense that way. But yeah, when I came around and I did the bathroom, I pulled out a bathtub, realised I've got a big job in my hands because this bathroom is absolutely massive. But I mean, I think I managed to make it work. In the bathroom there ends up being kind of like a washing section where your Sims would wash themselves, and then there's kind of like the toilet and the sink section. So they'd kind of like walk in through the bathroom door, and then on the right hand side we have a bit of a half wall, and I tried to close in the shower into the half wall, and then we also have like a little bathtub area, place down some like little side tables that looks like they've got drawers, maybe there's like bath salts and bubble bath and stuff in it. And then on the other section, that's where I placed down at the toilet and then the sink, and then I think also like another side table and then potentially a plant. But there is a balcony from the bathroom, so your Sims can literally jump out the bathtub, put their robe on, or put like a dressing gown or towel, whatever their preference is, put something over them, and then they can go and sit out on the balcony. And yeah, there's a few rocking chairs out there. There is also a few different planters. Also placed down a litter box, because when it came round to doing like the laundry room downstairs and then also one of the downstairs bathrooms, there wasn't enough space for me to be able to squeeze in a litter box, and so if the cat needs a wee, the cat has to go upstairs. But yeah, I thought it was a bit weird, not gonna lie, that there is a balcony outside the bathroom. But these people, they've got money. Like I said, like the Sims that live in this house, they're authors, they've got so much money in the bank, they probably don't even use like even a fraction of it, because they're just Sims that like to keep themselves to themselves, and the way that they entertain themselves is one of like the most bank friendly ways, because they just don't spend any money. They just read and drink tea and just go for nature walks. And so maybe they just added a balcony just because, why not? I mean, they've got no neighbours, might as well. But yeah, that was the bathroom in the upstairs portion. But you can see that I've moved over and I've started furnishing 2 of the bedrooms. So the first bedroom you would have seen me do, I was more so thinking if you wanted it to be, you could definitely make that into a teenager's room and then maybe just delete a few of the toys. I was personally thinking that one of the kids in this household, like the child age, was maybe just about to age up into a teenager, and so they've got a nice combo of both kid-related items, but then also more like grown-up, more like sophisticated items, if that makes any sense, in their bedroom. But you can see that I'm just going around and just finishing up the last bedroom in this house. So this bedroom only has a single bed. I use the one that is from the Seasons expansion pack. It's got little curtains. Honestly, one of my favourite single beds in the game, and to be honest, never really use it anymore. Tell you what, actually, there was one thought that I had when I was doing this build, when it came around to doing the bedrooms. I really wish at some point in the near future we're going to get a new organised menu for The Sims 4 in terms of the bed options, because there is so many different single beds, double beds and bunk beds now. When you're trying to find a bed in the catalogue, maybe it's just me, I struggle now because we've got so many different options. So I really hope that one day, even if we just get like a single bed catalogue and then a double bed catalogue, I would really appreciate it. You know, like how we've got sofas in the game and we've got a separate section for like 2-seater sofas and 3-seater sofas. Something like that I feel like we need in The Sims 4. But either way, moving on. As you can see, I've now moved over to the last room in this house, which is on the 3rd floor, and this ends up being the little book nook home office area. I just absolutely adore the way this room turned out, because it's just so cozy, and I feel like if you're an author, this would be like almost like a dream office, because you're completely on your own, there's no one else around you. You walk up some stairs, which the way that you actually get up is from like obviously the second level, but downstairs I placed down some like French looking doors kind of like in the entrance into this little hallway, and then you walk up some stairs, you've got this little like home desk area situation, and then I placed down some like filing cabinets, a few different bookcases, also placed down like another armchair in the other corner. I just tried to clutter it up, especially with lots of different books and just book related items. I tried to place down like scrap bits of paper onto the floor, which I'm not sure if I've done it yet or if I'm just about to do it, but by the desk area, just kind of like underneath where your sim would sit, I placed down a bit of scrap paper. And I was personally thinking maybe this was an idea that they had, maybe it was kind of like an overall idea for like a new book that they wanted to write or something, and they've written it down on a bit of paper. Didn't like the idea, tried to throw it in the bin, which I don't think I have actually done this bit yet, because yeah, I'm just about to do it, but they tried to throw this bit of paper in the bin and it's missed the bin. It was such a small little detail, but I just really liked it, and I just tried to give this room so much personality and just try and clutter it up with so much stuff, more so book related stuff than just also just bits and bobs, and just a clock and loads of different lamps and loads of different like odd pens and just loads of different things that kind of make sense for like an author's little writing room. But anyway, I'm going to go around the room, basically just finish it off, and that is pretty much it. So anyway guys, I'm going to end this voiceover right here. As always, you can download this build via the gallery. My gallery ID is JessicapieYT, or you just search for the hashtag JessicapieYT or just the hashtag Jessicapie. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and as always, if you do like my content, then please do subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in my next Sims 4 speedrunning video. Bye guys.